Building beneath a city is the physical constraint at the center of this story. But the supplied evidence contains exactly 0 verified big dig dimensions, costs, dates, construction methods, failures, or present-day performance figures. That creates a contradiction more fundamental than anything beneath Boston. The title promises an explanation of why a specific project nearly bankrupted a city, while the available record does not establish that claim. There is no supported figure for the project's scale, no documented financial burden, and no evidence showing that Boston itself approached bankruptcy. So, the apparent answer must be withheld. Before explaining what made the big dig work, what nearly defeated it, or what it ultimately cost, the underlying facts would have to be demonstrated. With this evidence alone, they cannot be. Any confident story about tunnels, machinery, schedules, budgets, or engineering decisions would sound specific, but it would be manufactured. The original promise is still clear. This is supposed to be a story about expectation colliding with documented reality. A major construction project carried out beneath Boston, followed by escalating difficulty and a decisive engineering response. That framework could support a powerful documentary, because engineering is fundamentally the practice of solving problems under constraints. The supplied institutional description says engineers systematically apply mathematics and natural science to design or improve systems and processes. It also identifies the competing demands they must balance: safety, performance, appearance, cost, laws, regulations, and time. Those principles explain why an underground urban project could become extraordinarily complicated in general. They do not prove what happened on the Big Dig. A general definition cannot establish a project's route, physical scale, original budget, completion date, management structure, or financial consequences. It gives us an analytical lens, not a historical record. That distinction exposes the hidden system behind every megaproject documentary, the evidence chain. A physical structure can be photographed, but its visible concrete does not reveal why a design was selected. A completed roadway does not disclose its original estimate. A dramatic headline does not show whether cost growth came from design changes, inflation, financing, delays, risk, oversight failures, or some combination of factors. To establish cause, each link must be supported independently. The baseline scope must be known before later scope can be compared with it. A schedule needs a documented starting point before a delay can be measured. Financial claims require a clear definition of what is included, and the phrase "nearly bankrupted the city" demands evidence about Boston's actual fiscal condition, not merely a large project price. None of those links appears in the supplied material. The first possible approach would be to fill those gaps with familiar assumptions about underground construction. A narrator could describe unseen obstacles, crowded infrastructure, difficult ground, water control, traffic pressure, or complex staging. Those ideas might sound plausible, but plausibility is not documentation, and the evidence provided here does not connect any of them to this project. The same problem applies to claims about political decisions, contractor performance, public frustration, engineering failures, or corrective measures. Without project-specific sources, none can be presented as the reason costs rose or work became difficult. Even the description of the Big Dig as Boston's biggest construction project is contained only in the proposed title, not established by the evidence excerpt. The first attempt, therefore, fails. It could produce suspense, scale, and visual detail, but only by converting assumptions into facts. The turning point is recognizing that uncertainty is not an inconvenience to hide. It is the central finding. The supplied record supports a broad engineering principle. Real projects operate within physical laws while balancing human demands that often compete with one another. Improving performance can affect cost. Meeting regulations can affect time. Protecting safety can restrict available methods. Aesthetic or civic goals can influence design. But this framework identifies categories of pressure, not the pressures documented in Boston. The responsible decision is therefore the opposite of the dramatic one. Instead of selecting a convenient explanation and building a narrative around it, the script must stop at the boundary of the evidence. That boundary prevents a general truth about engineering from being misrepresented as a verified account of the Big Dig. The mechanism can still be explained, but only at the level the source allows. Engineering is a structured negotiation among constraints. Natural science and mathematics define what a system can physically do. Safety and performance define what it must reliably do. Laws and regulations define what it is permitted to do. Cost and time define what institutions can afford and deliver. Aesthetics may shape how the result fits its surroundings. These demands do not automatically align. A decision that improves one can place pressure on another, which is why major projects cannot be understood through a single number or a single dramatic event. For the Big Dig, however, the evidence does not identify the crucial trade-off, the failed approach, or the engineering decision that resolved it. Naming any particular mechanism would cross from supported interpretation into invention. That evidentiary gap also changes how the word cost must be treated. Cost may refer to an early estimate, a later estimate, direct construction spending, financing, maintenance, or some broader accounting boundary. The source provides no Big Dig figure and no definition. It therefore cannot support a comparison, a percentage increase, or a claim about who ultimately carried the burden. More importantly, expensive is not synonymous with bankrupting. To argue that a project nearly bankrupted Boston would require documented evidence connecting project obligations to the city's capacity to pay. That could involve legal responsibility, funding arrangements, debt, revenue, or fiscal warnings, but none is supplied. The title's strongest claim remains an allegation embedded in framing, not an established conclusion. Repeating it as fact would turn missing financial evidence into false certainty. There is also a counterpoint. A lack of evidence in this packet does not prove that the familiar claims about the Big Dig are false. It proves only that they are unverified here. Additional reliable records could establish the project's dimensions, chronology, budget history, construction methods, failures, benefits, and fiscal consequences. They might reveal a clear engineering turning point, or they might show that no single decision explains the outcome. The distinction matters because uncertainty has two edges. We cannot confirm the dramatic version, but we also cannot replace it with a reassuring version. The project may have delivered substantial benefits, suffered serious problems, or both. This source does not decide among those possibilities. A credible documentary would preserve that uncertainty until project-specific evidence narrowed it. The same limitation applies to the Big Dig's outcome today. The supplied material offers no current status, operating assessment, maintenance record, traffic result, public space consequence, or institutional evaluation. It does not tell us whether the completed system meets its intended performance, how its benefits are measured, or what continuing obligations remain. Visible existence alone would not answer those questions. Present performance requires present evidence, just as historical cost requires historical accounting. Nor can the structure be labeled a success or failure solely from the general proposition that engineering balances competing demands. A project can perform well and still have been badly managed. It can exceed an early estimate while delivering changed scope. It can solve one problem while creating another. Those are analytical possibilities, not findings about Boston. So why did Boston's biggest construction project nearly bankrupt the city? On the supplied evidence, that question has no verified answer, and its premise is not established. What nearly defeated the project, which physical constraint dominated construction, and which engineering decision made the work possible, also remain unresolved. The only evidence-based conclusion is methodological but consequential. Engineering stories must balance claims under constraints, just as engineers balance designs. Mathematics, safety, performance, regulation, cost, and time form a legitimate framework for investigation. They are not substitutes for project records. Without documented dimensions, dates, budgets, decisions, and outcomes, specificity becomes fabrication. The lesson is not that the Big Dig lacked extraordinary engineering or serious consequences. The lesson is that neither can be responsibly explained until the evidence beneath the story is as solid as the structure the story is trying to describe. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.